Hi there. So, part two of the verdict. Let's talk about the other side, the Trump side, Tacopina, the other lawyers. I found it really interesting that after the verdict came in, that Tacopina seemed way more relaxed. He was laughing and joking with the journalists, asking him questions. There was a guy across the street who was yelling the F word and telling him to leave the city and that kind of thing. And he said to the journalists, I've got to, this was at the end of all of the questions, I've got to go. There's a fan over there that I need to go and speak to. And that to me is not what you would expect. You would expect a very serious, response from the lawyers for Trump, especially after they'd spoken to Trump and let him know what was going on. So I think, and I'm making assumptions, I'm making guesses here, but I think a lot of that was the fact that this case was almost definitely unwinnable for Tacopina and the team of lawyers, because there was no evidence that they put on. They knew it was going to be a preponderance of evidence, which is a lower bar for the jury to reach. But I think Tacopina seems more confident. More confident with the appeal, taking this to the appellate court, possibly because that's an easier process or maybe he sees it as an easier process to control his client, take control of the situation, because there are only certain issues you can raise on appeal. It's all about the legal side of things, jury instructions, judgments from the judge about evidence, what evidence was allowed in, and that kind of thing. And he was saying yesterday that obviously they're going to fight, that they are going to appeal, of course, and they've got every right to do that. And they're going to appeal because the verdict was contradictory. That it just goes to prove that the case wasn't made, because E. Carroll all the way along has said, this was a civil rape trial, and she couldn't prove rape. And, yes, I can see that. However, there is some reporting as to why the jury may have come to that conclusion, that Trump was liable for sexually abusing E. Carroll, but not for raping her. And that has something to do with an allegation that many women have made against Trump, that his winky doesn't reach. And that may not be something that they want to pursue, depending on, how delicate that subject is. So it seems to me, at the very least, that Tacopina is a lot more relaxed now that this is over. And I think it's because he knew they were going to lose, and he's more comfortable with the next phase. And as I've said in the last video, I mean, there are lots of ways of delaying. Appeals can take a couple of years. They may fast track it. I don't know how that works in New York. But this could be a couple of years. It could be, could be delayed to the election, and that gives them, or, maybe Trump feels that is an out. I also found it very interesting. Straight away, Trump was on his social media site saying, it was a witch hunt. He has no idea who this woman is, despite what he said in his deposition and what was said at trial, and the proof that they had met before. They'd met several times, once or twice. And he knew who her husband was, and, all of these things. And as E. Jean Carroll's lawyers argued in their closing statements, the deposition tape was a confession. So this gives time for Trump's team to kind of argue the legal side of things, and they have a few things that they can argue. The damage is done with the 84% of the electorate that Trump isn't playing to, but Tacopina is playing to, as I've said before, this audience of one, and it's Trump. And as far as Trump is concerned, Tacopina is still out there saying what he wants him to say, that Trump can't get a fair trial in New York, that because they couldn't question the jury members and they had no personal information, no names, no date of births, that kind of thing, that it was somehow rigged. This plays into Trump's fantasy about everything being stolen, and it's a big conspiracy. And it buys them time. If it takes 2 years for this to go to the appellate court, and of course there are other delaying tactics that they can use in terms of paying out the money. $5 million to Trump, according to himself, is a drop in the ocean. He's really rich. And this is a great funding thing for him. Apparently emails have already gone out to his supporters to ask for donations, to fight this, to make sure the election isn't rigged again. It wasn't rigged. All of these other things. And it plays into that. Tacopina said it in this interview outside of the press, outside of the courtroom. So I think, on their side, they see it as great. We can still spin this as victimhood and a bad judgment and everything else. This plays to the base. And I think because they didn't find for the grossest of claims, that helps soothe Trump, because no one wants to be labeled that way. Whereas, being rich and powerful and groping women, that can be spun, which is sick and disgusting. But he's out there at the moment praising these alpha males, and I think he's trying to position himself so that is part of the defense, and part of the grift is, I'm a masculine man, I see a beautiful woman, I'm as if that's normal, as if that's okay, as if women don't get a choice. So I think it will play to his base. And like I said yesterday, I don't think it's not going to change any minds on the hardcore Trump side of things. It may change independent voters, but there's a long time before the election. And, we saw this in 2016 when the Access Hollywood tape came out. It was a big story and everyone was disgusted. But when it came to actually voting, people didn't care enough. And that helped the Me Too movement improving a point. But I think Trump sees that as, he's gotten away with it before. And that's not as worrying to him or his PR team, his campaign. And I genuinely, I don't think this is going to change anything in terms of how Trump is going about things, or, what he's saying on social media, what he's going to say at campaign rallies, all of those things. I don't think it's going to change much for him. And that is, the sad part about it is, although there is a civil trial, a verdict, and damages have been awarded, it's not true accountability if he just gets away with it and can delay things and everything else. And Trump loves that. He enjoys being the center of attention. He enjoys the news cycle. He enjoys the adoration from alpha males and the sycophants around him. He needs that. So from that side of things, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. They still have other cases coming, and I think we're going to see that very stressed and unwell looking Joe Tacopina again very, very soon. But this is the sad fact. If you kind of taking this as the cautionary tale of what happens when women speak out, even when it goes to trial, that doesn't necessarily mean that a guilty verdict or a liability verdict is going to actually change anything. It's not going to change Trump's behavior. There's not going to be that golden moment of accountability that all victims want. And, even if someone goes to jail or there's a mea culpa moment where someone like Trump says, yeah, hands up, I was terrible. And, I've seen this in my own life. I've had friends who, after the Me Too movement and after really educating themselves about what women go through and what it's like, have kind of gone, yeah, like I, without realizing it, have sexually harassed, sexually abused women. I have said inappropriate things. I have touched without consent, without realizing. Like, culturally, it was seen as okay. Women have always known it's not. And it's always made us feel really uncomfortable. Don't do it. So, even with that moment, that's great. You're learning, you're changing, you want to evolve. Awesome. Doesn't take away that distress, that trauma, that upset. And it's nice to see the world changing. But there isn't that golden epiphany moment because Trump doesn't care. This isn't kind of going to change anything for him. And in fact, it's just going to make him more of a victim, going to get him more news, and it's going to further his campaign donations. His donors are still going to give to him, his small donors. People at home, the kitchen table people are still going to give to his campaign because they believe in Trump. They believe in this cult of personality, and don't realize that maybe he isn't the best candidate, whether that's because of his actions and the all of the legal kind of consequences that are coming his way, or because actually his values don't align. It's amazing how people who say that they're for family values and very Christian and everything else will not only forgive, because forgiveness is part of the faith, but just forget that this is the person that they're voting for to get into the White House, to make those life and death big decisions. So, for Trump, this is meh. He can use it. And that's a really sad indictment of Western culture. And I'm sure not just Western culture, but other cultures. But, I'm talking from my perspective. Like, it's like that here. You look at our politicians and famous people who have affairs, and it doesn't affect anything. There is no cancel culture here. So yeah, so that's where I'm at, in terms of Trump's side. I'm going to watch these trials and watch the people involved in them, because I really do think there's a lot we can learn from everyone involved: witnesses, lawyers on every side, DAs, judges, whoever. I think there is a lot we can learn about ourselves, the world around us, our societies, and change comes from within. Viewing these things from the outside, we're able to identify things that maybe we can work on. And it's a personal choice. We can't change other people, we can change ourselves. And it's those small changes that evolve in society. That's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed the work. If you do enjoy these videos, give them a thumbs up and let me know. Get involved in the discussion. What do you think about the verdict and the people involved in the verdict? Remember, this isn't about politics, it's about the people. So keep it respectful. Have a look at part 1 if you haven't, and consider subscribing if you like what I'm doing. Thank you very much for being here, and I will speak to you soon.